Hey there, do this all first. Today, as promised, I'm going to show you how you can completely restore a hazy or yellowing headlight. Alrighty, so here's a look at the headlight that we're going to be working on. And hopefully, as you can see, this headlight is quite hazy. And actually, if you look at it at the right angle, it's pretty yellow too. Now, this video is going to be a follow-up to my previous video where I show you how you can, as a temporary fix, use some toothpaste to clean the exterior of your headlight and restore some shine back to it. Now, I'll put a link to that video right here on this side of the screen where you can click on it. Also be a link in the description box for those of you who are interested as a temporary fix. But if you want a permanent fix, then I suggest you watch the rest of this video. So the reason that you have yellowing or hazy headlights is due to the wear to the UV protective layer or the clear coat that's sprayed on these plastic headlights when they come out of the factory. So as that sealant breaks down, you get this hazy look like we got going on here. Also, if you get a lot of dirt and debris that stick to it, it looks yellow as well. So if we want to permanently fix this problem, we need to remove any leftover sealant that's still on this headlight and apply our own sealant. And in order to remove that layer, we're going to start sanding our headlight with some 400 grit sanding paper. I will also be using this semi-soft sanding block, but you don't have to buy one of these, you can just sand by hand. Also, a bucket of soapy water will make sanding a lot easier. Now, before we get to sanding though, we're going to get some painter's masking tape and tape all around our headlight. Now, obviously we need to do this because as we're sanding, we don't want to accidentally put any sand scratches on these adjacent panels. And as you're putting on your masking tape, make sure you just don't put it over the panel. You actually go a little bit further and then you put the rest of the tape underneath the panel. This way you're actually protecting the lip of the panel as well. Also, you want to get your tape between the headlight and the adjacent panel, no matter how tight the spot is, because later on when we apply our sealant and our sealant dries and it's time to remove this tape, if the tape is over both panels, you're going to remove some of the sealant with the tape and that's not going to be good. Alrighty, so here's how things look after masking, and now it's time to start sanding. So we'll get some soapy water on our headlights and we start sanding away. Here's another important tip. When you're sanding, make sure you sand over these edges all around your headlight, because if you don't sand these edges, when you apply your sealant later on, your sealant is not going to stick to these edges, and then this is where it's going to start peeling off. Also, through the power of editing, I think the part where I'm sanding this headlight might be 20 seconds long, but you know, you gotta spend a good 5-10 minutes, depending on how bad your headlight is faded, sanding this down. And here's how things look after sanding with our 400 grit sandpaper. And as you can see, things are pretty hazy, but that's okay because we just scratched it with 400 grit sanding paper. But the whole point was to remove all the old sealant. And what you want to see is this smooth feeling over your plastic. If you see any flaking or it's not uniform and not completely smooth, you need to sand down those areas that are not. So next we're going to go over to some 800 grit sandpaper and go over our 400 grit sand scratches on our headlight. And next we'll sand it down with some 1500 grit sanding paper. And here's how things look after sanding with some 1500 grit sanding paper. And again, you want to make sure everything is smooth to the touch. Alright, so next, before we start applying our sealant, we need to make sure that this headlight is completely clean. Now you can use some grease and wax remover to completely wipe this down. Or if you don't feel like buying one of those, you can just get some clean soapy water and then use a clean towel to completely wipe this down, and then use another towel to completely dry it off. But since I already got one of these, this is what I'm going to use. So again, make sure you not only thoroughly clean this, but also that it's completely dry all around the edges. You don't want any water start dripping on your headlight as you're about to apply sealant to it. Alright, so next we're just going to mask up all around our headlight before we start spraying our sealant. And I'm going to use some masking paper, but you know, you can use newspapers, trash bags, you know, whatever you can get your hands on. Now this is a parts car for me, so it's not very important in my case, but when you're putting masking paper, you want to make sure you go at least to your windshield and your driver's side door. That way when you go to spray your sealant, you don't get any overspray on those panels. And the sealant we're going to use is just going to be some clear coat. It's important to make sure the clear coat you buy though has UV light protection. So before you buy one of these at your local auto parts store, just read the back and make sure that it says it does have UV protection. And before we start spraying, we want to make sure we thoroughly shake our can of clear coat. There we go. So we're going to do 2 light coats and then 1 final medium heavy coat. And we're going to wait about about 10 minutes between each coat. And here's how things look after our first run. And as you can see, it's not perfectly smooth, but it's starting to clear up. And by the final third, or maybe even a fourth run, this should be pretty nice and shiny. And just to clarify, when I say light coat, it just means that you simply move faster while you're spraying. And then in order to spray a heavier coat, you just simply move a little bit slower. And it's time for our second run, and we make sure again we shake our can thoroughly. Time for our third pass, and I'm going to start putting these on a little bit heavier. And after our third pass, we're going to wait about an hour or two before we start peeling off the tape and the masking paper around our headlight. Here's another tip. Whenever you're taking off tape right next to your headlight, peel it away from your headlight. Don't peel into your headlight, because if you got clear coat on some areas over the tape and you pull into your headlight, you're just going to be peeling that clear coat off your headlight. And here's a look at our final product. And if I may say so myself, looks pretty awesome. Now if you look very closely at this headlight, you are able to see some orange peel, but that's pretty normal. Whenever you spray clear coat, especially out of a can, you're bound to have some orange peel. But minus the orange peel, this came out really nice. Let me show it off at this angle as well. Oh, I'm going to keep going. Now if you want to get rid of the orange peel for an even shinier look, what you can do is to first wait about 36 to 48 hours and then get some polishing compound, and then with a microfiber towel just polish it out by hand. And if you put some elbow grease into it, probably after about 5 or 10 minutes you should be able to get rid of a lot of the orange peel that's on your headlight. Now what you don't want to do is to put any type of wax on your headlight, because the clear coat we just sprayed on there needs to cure. And if you put wax over it, it's not going to be able to breathe, and it's not going to be able to completely cure. And it takes more than a few days for clear coat to cure. In fact, to be on the safe side, I would wait at least 2 to 3 weeks before I put any wax on the headlight. And with that said, gonna wrap this video up. So if you found anything useful in this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you want to see more like it, and you may also want to consider checking out some of my other videos. I'll put it up on the screen as video links so you can just click on it. Alright, thanks for watching. See you next time.